By way of introductions, I'm a senior business intelligence engineer on the team at Block. For those not familiar with Block, Block is the parent company of product brands including Cash App, Afterpay, Square, Tidal, and others. And for the past about 3 years, I've been focused mostly on the Cash App side, building out data pipelines and self-serve analytic tools for cross-functional finance stakeholders. Yeah, I'll let Matt introduce himself as well.
Yeah, okay, sweet. Audio is good. Nice to see everybody here. My name is Matt Pekarski. I've been with Snowflake for about 3 years, working as Block's dedicated solutions engineer, local here to the Bay Area. And if you don't know Snowflake, you might be at the wrong session, but excited to talk to you guys today about Streamlit and what we've been doing with Goose.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start with the big picture. We named this session Make Data Human. What do we mean by that? If you think about traditional BI for a moment, for decades we've asked analysts to be detectives, form a hypothesis, write some SQL, build a dashboard, interpret results. It's basically been a one-way interrogation of our data. And as we all know, AI is completely changing this. It's transforming the relationship of the analyst from just a detective to a collaborator. And so our goal today is to talk about how we are building the tools to enable this new way of working and to facilitate this data partnership where the analyst is no longer just a detective, but the dialogue between the data and the analyst allows insights to emerge naturally. So one of our operating principles at Cash App is to feel it. So if this feels a bit abstract right now, don't worry. We're going to be doing 2 demos today, 2 live demos to showcase some use cases to make this more real. Oh man, I missed my that was supposed to be a big cinematic reveal, but make data human by letting it tell its own story. I got too carried away in the message. I forgot to press the clicker, but you get it. Okay, cool. Okay, so business objectives. We're going to be touching upon a couple different business impacts to this work. And so the first is democratize data access, really trying to remove the SQL barrier for technical and non-technical users. And I think almost every session I've been to at this conference so far, I think has touched on this. A lot of people are really excited about using Gen AI to write SQL. So we're excited to show you how we're doing this at Block. Transform data discovery, so going from solving the cold start problem of a lot of times business users don't even know where to look for the data. And so using semantic layer to help direct to map business questions to the right data source. And then automate analytics, which admittedly is kind of just a fun, buzzy thing to say, but we're really seeing how Agentic AI is enabling us to completely automate our analytic pipeline, taking a business question, writing SQL, executing SQL, drafting results, all in under 60 seconds. And I think maybe the unique spin that we will be offering today, more than just the Gen AI, is how then we used our internal AI agent Goose to actually orchestrate with other tools. So once you get those insights, create a Google Doc, send a Slack message, open a Jira ticket for a bug we found. So excited to talk about some of those applications. But okay, so why is this a hard problem to solve? Talking about the data scale for a second. Every day on Cash App, there's around 10 million transactions sent from users to each other. And these aren't just transactions. Each one tells a story. If you think about each one has a payment note where users can say their own little text of what the transaction is for. So movie tickets, last night's dinner, thanks for coffee. If you multiply these millions of daily transactions by 365 days, in a single year, you have billions of tiny stories about how Americans are living, working, and connecting. And so it's a real-time cultural and economic feed if you can extract those insights at scale. And so that's really the essence of the technical problem that we were trying to solve at Cash App with this data. We have this rich transaction data with billions of transactions. And we didn't just want to build dashboards with aggregated rollups, but how do we expose this transaction data to our non-technical users in a way that they can engage with it without needing a data scientist or like waiting for a business analyst. So we landed on 2 tools for this, and the first is Streamlit, which seems like a lot of you are familiar with, and the second is Codename Goose. And so we'll be going into a crash course overview for both of these, so I'll try to avoid explaining what they are right now on this slide, but for the context of setting the stage and kind of where we're headed with this presentation is you can kind of think of Streamlit, if you're unfamiliar, as a traditional BI dashboard where you can build you have pre-built reports. It's visual, it's predictable. A well-built dashboard will return the same answer every time. And then we have this new world of Gen AI, which is not deterministic, right? It's probabilistic. That's what makes it unknown and unpredictable is up there, which kind of sounds like a con when you're talking about business intelligence because we need our stakeholders to trust the data. That's a core tenet of business intelligence. And so yeah, we've kind of been grappling with how do we bridge these two worlds together where Gen AI is super exciting and I think going to for sure revolutionize how we do business intelligence, but how do we ground that in the deterministic nature of Streamlit? And so that's where we see these as really powerful integrated solutions. So here's our agenda of how we're going to structure this presentation, and we've kind of structured it as a development recap because, to be honest, it has changed tremendously since when we started this project in 2024 because Agentic AI wasn't really a thing until January of this year. So we'll first talk through Streamlit dashboards, showcase a dashboard that we built on top of those payment notes data that enabled an internal non-technical team to self-serve, uncover some insights that made it onto CNBC. So more on that story in a bit. And then we'll go into Agentic AI, talk through how Block engineers developed our own AI agent that is transformed internal productivity and possibility. And then we'll kind of talk through our scale and integration, how this is the current phase we're in at Block, where we have these technologies, how do we scale them and how do we integrate them to tell a cohesive business intelligence or create a cohesive business intelligence tool for our users. So with that, I'll hand it over to Matt to give a bit of an overview of Streamlit.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Awesome. So you guys are already familiar with Streamlit, but for those that might not be, Streamlit is an open source Python data package that lives on Snowflake, allows you to create applications. I think Zach summed it up really well earlier when he said gone are the days of kind of single dimensional dashboards because Streamlit is not just for dashboards, it's for applications, right? Of course, you can have visualizations, charts, graphs, things like that. But Streamlit allows you to also just be interactive with the data, push things back, retrieve things, actually generate processes from that UI. And of course, people love it because it lives inside Snowflake. It's easily shareable. The governance and kind of the permissions are there. It's also, you don't have to manage any infrastructure. And it kind of goes with that core tenet of Snowflake of it just works. It's easy to use. So Block has always been an early adopter when it comes to a lot of Snowflake's technologies. And as soon as Streamlit came along, they really ran with it for numbers of different workloads across many different departments. So Zach is going to show a little example of some analysis they did on the Cash App side.
Sweet. Okay, yeah, live demo time. Fingers crossed. Okay, this is an app we built called Zeitgeist, and we'll just showcase how it works. And then we'll kind of show you a peek under the hood of how we built it. So Zeitgeist means spirit of the times, and so you can kind of think of this app that we built as a Google Trends, but for how people are spending their money on Cash App. And so again, it's referring to that data set of over 10 billion transactions. And we set it up so that any user could come and search for any term and receive insights on how people are using that term or phrase or word in the tool. So you can see here, the default is think. It returned over 1 million matching payments. And important to note that what an architectural decision we did here is it's powered on a 1% sample, which is still hundreds of millions of records, but that made it representative of the population, but allowed the app to load a little bit faster. So we are going to go on theme and search the word snow. So just a generic term, how are people using the word snow when they use Cash App? You can see almost instantly it returned 11,000 matching payments. Median payment was $30. Oh, and I should disclaim that this is real Cash App data, but no customer PII data is exposed in this demo or in our internal tool, so customer privacy is maintained, even though we are pointing at raw transactions. Okay, so if we scroll down, you can see We have some visualizations here. So here's kind of a density heat map of what states are using it. And not surprisingly, looks like a weather map, right? People in the northern part of the United States tend to pay for snow-related services more. Generations, you see this is indexed, so it's representative of each age generation. Baby boomers tend to over-index compared to other generations. And so you might hypothesize that's because maybe they're paying for snow removal services. We'll see later on. We have a trend chart, so you can look historically back to 2021. How payments with this word trended? Also, unsurprisingly, some spikes in the winter months, but quite a bit of activity in the summer, actually. Any brave volunteers want to guess what the summer mentions of snow? Whoa, okay, wow. I need a chart to tell me. You guys are smart. You spoiled it. Here's the, yeah, exactly. But here's the chart that if you weren't intuitive about the data, it would tell you up here. We extracted all the emojis that are used, which is kind of a fun analysis as well, to show like what emojis are being used in mentions of the word snow. And so you see up here, snow cone's actually the #1 emoji, slightly outpacing snowboarding, which is good to know. So, okay, and then we also pull out other words down here as well. So you can see removal here, which is maybe supporting that hypothesis of why baby boomers are over-indexing in snow payments, as well as then with any of these charts, this is kind of highlighting what Matt mentioned with the flexibility of Streamlit dashboards. You can make them very interactive. So with all of these visualizations, we built in a dropdown. So you can come in, you can see the data, you can export it to a CSV, and so people can kind of run with it however they want. And I did notice that Snowflake is there, and the data geek in me is curious if all y'all are using Cash App for Snowflake Summit happy hours, but I will resist the temptation to dig in.
You can't pay for your Snowflake bill with Cash App yet.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Yet, I like that. Next year. Okay. Let's just, we'll go through and we'll show you the code right now, but while we're doing that, we'll kind of walk through an example. And let's say that we want to be more hypothesis-driven in this example, and maybe I have a theory that people are using Cash App for sports betting. So I searched fantasy football, and where this actually lives is in the projects pane of Snowsight. So if you come here, you can come and see this is where all your Streamlit dashboards are. And since I have edit access, I'll come up here and let's take a look at the code. So first off, it's really, like Matt mentioned as well, it's all Python based, which makes it very flexible. It's built on just 2 files. So we have this Python file that has all the code, as well as an environment YAML file, which is where we're able to declare the Python version and the libraries. And then important to note that you can connect this all to GitHub. So most of our production apps, our production Streamlit apps at Block are connected through GitHub, which of course unlocks CI/CD, version control, and code collaboration. But it's also really nice that it's integrated within the Snowflake or Snowsight platform, because kind of our development pattern at Block has been to spin up a quick POC. If it gets traction, then we will take the time to migrate it to production GitHub. Okay, so let's go back here. We'll close this pane. And just to highlight again, all Python based. So you can see if you're familiar with Python, we import our libraries. The Streamlit's what renders the UI. We have various visualization libraries such as Plotly, Matplotlib. And then it's really this kind of simple, query, or sorry, the simple Snowpark API query where we just pass raw SQL. And down here, you'll see that we're passing the search term. So when I searched fantasy football, it wrote this query, it passed it back to Snowflake, and then we can come down and see that that's what returned these charts. So pass the search term fantasy football to Snowflake, we parse it out into a data frame, or pull into a data frame, parse out the elements, and then pass it back to the dashboard with just Jinja templating. So pretty straightforward flow that we just repeat for each of the dashboards. So yeah, we've kind of organized it of like, here's our visualization to create the states, and same idea, or same, I guess, pattern. So
And
Before, oh yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
and for those of you that are a little less technical, right? Python can always look a little daunting, right? And what's always great about Streamlit is it's so easy to just cut and paste different pieces you find on GitHubs and quick starts. It's really easy to just piece that all together and quickly test and actually develop it because you just have it right there in that pane. So that's personally, I've always enjoyed that. Just I'm a trial and error kind of guy. So Streamlit, the way it's built in Snowflake is great for that.
And plus one to that, Streamlit is great for vibe coding since it's open source. There's like, you can truly say, hey, create a dashboard for me that does this, and it will give you the Streamlit code. You can plop it into Streamlit Snowflake UI. So yeah, very flexible for options to get started. Okay, just because I think it's fun, we're going to show you the results of this. Fantasy football, millennials tend to over-index, so reverse trend here. Baby boomers missed that hype train. And then I love this trend chart as well. It's kind of like a heartbeat for the NFL season. You can see August starts, everyone starts paying their dues for their fantasy leagues. Season goes on, they get their payouts at the end of the season, and then flatline. That's the off season. And then the emoji analytics here are also fantastic. You can basically feel the competitive spirit with a bunch of medals, crowns, some thumbs down, people not happy with their season. But you can really see how just building something like this and giving it to all types of business users starts to just unlock ideas and questions about how we can leverage our data to make business decisions. Cool. I think we will go. Perfect. That was quite easy.
And one other thing I'll mention, obviously, this is the funnest use case I think to show, but Block is using this for a lot of serious processes as well. Query optimization, managing storage lifecycle policies. It's obviously the dashboarding feature is always the most fun to show, but there's a lot of critical workloads that you can run through these applications as well.
For sure. Cool. And yeah, before moving on, just wanted to highlight some of the key architectural decisions for those who are maybe more technical in the room and developers. Again, we use Snowflake for the compute, Streamlit to render the UI, and then Python for the analytics libraries. And I think the key point here, something we learned from our first kind of stages of building out these dashboards is, I think the first time we tried to pull a big data set into a pandas data frame, thinking that then we would use Python to parse it. And what we found is that Snowflake is much more efficient handling that compute. And so the less data you can load into your app, we found to run much faster. So that was kind of a key decision we make with most of our Streamlit dashboards we develop now. And then again, yeah, speaking of the flexibility of it being Python-based, any Python library you can use to build flexible dashboarding. Okay, so before moving on to Goose, we're almost there, but wanted to highlight how this brought some business impact to Cash App. So we have an internal team called, or our public relations team, and non-technical team, don't know how to write SQL, don't have any dedicated analysts or data scientist staff, but they came across this dashboard and started playing around with it, and they were able to create Cash App's first That's Money report. And this is basically a report that helped tell the story of how people are using Cash App and generated a lot of positive publicity. So I wanted to highlight just one of the example pages from this white paper that was publicly released. I think this bottom left one's fun. Californians out here living their best lives with taco and beer. New Yorkers apparently crying in taxis. And then up at the top right, I found from this report that the raffle emoji is going out of style, and my younger sister confirmed that this is seen as a cringe millennial emoji. So for us older millennials who are still using raffle, we might be dating ourselves, but it's okay, it's still a great emoji. I'll probably keep using it. And I'm not going to try to explain any of the slang surge because I'll probably embarrass myself by pretending I know what it means. So we will move on. Okay, again, just highlighting that how this kind of drove some positive publicity, was picked up by several news outlets, and is helping us continue to tell the story of all the great and interesting ways people are using Cash App. Cool. I think that sets us up well to go to the next phase, which is Agentic AI. Because if you think about it, this dashboard that we built, it helped unlock a lot of value for non-technical teams to engage with that data. Kind of that first business objective we talked about. that was democratized access to the transaction level data. But at the same time, it took them multiple weeks, if not months, of iteratively going through all their ideas and hypotheses about let's search this emoji, or let's look at this word to see how it looks in the data. And so this phase 2 that really has just taken off this year for us is how do we take those weeks down to minutes? And that's where we can now use Goose and Agentic AI and Snowflake MCP to enable that. So you've now heard me say Goose probably too many times in this presentation without explaining what it is. So for those who don't know, Goose is an AI agent that was built by Block engineers and released in January of this year as an open source project. It's built on top of Anthropic's Model Context Protocol, which was released in November of last year. And it was just 3 months ago that we hooked Goose up to our Snowflake data through a Snowflake MCP to enable that speak to the data. So all very recent updates. This is all moving very fast, but we're really excited about a couple things with Goose, which number one, it's open source. And so while it's significantly used at Block right now, it's also picked up steam in open source communities with other developers, and even some large companies such as Stripe and Shopify are experimenting using it as well to pilot it for their use cases. And so if you are curious, I know we've got Snowflake Intelligence coming in 3 weeks, which is going to probably do a lot of the same things. But if you want to start playing around with it in the next 3 weeks, very easy to go to get Codename Goose and start experimenting. It's extensible, which means we're not locked into any large language model. That unlocks a lot of flexibility of, the Block build supports models from Anthropic, Google, OpenAI, and it's autonomous, which that, of course, is what makes it agentic. It can interact with apps on your computer and orchestrate different tasks. So we'll showcase that in the demo in just a minute. And if you're wondering, the name is absolutely a Top Gun reference. It was named after Maverick's wingman Goose because we wanted a trusted AI co-pilot. So there's a bit of lore there. But I'll try to demystify how MCP actually works, because again, whether you use Goose, whether you use ChatGPT operator, or Matt can maybe speak to this, but I think Snowflake Intelligence leverages MCP as well. This is kind of a foundational concept for how agentic AI works. And so I think it's helpful to have a high-level understanding of what's going on here. And so you can kind of think about MCP like a USB, right? Just like a USB port can take input from various peripheral devices, standardize it, and into a way that your computer can understand. That's what MCP does for all of our various enterprise applications, but in a way that AI can understand. So now we can hook our MCP client Goose up to our MCP servers, which is just developed in code in a GitHub repo. And it builds out tools that then connect with application APIs, so that when a business user says, send a Slack message to these people, the MCP host Goose will call the server that will execute the task through Slack.
One thing I'll mention there too is, like, ever since AI has come out, everyone's been trying to kind of get to that next frontier of like actually do tasks for me, right? And I think up until recently, using LLMs has been very, let me ask a question and get back some results. It's been difficult to make workflows. And with the advent of MCP, and as Zach will be showing as far as how they've implemented it at Block, it is truly becoming that next level of agents where you can, kick off workflows, do specific tasks. So as he'll be showing shortly.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Let me switch over. Yeah, I was just getting that up. I think we're good. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I'll be doing a demo of how Goose works. And to start, just an overview of, we'll be asking some questions on the same data set, but first of all, just looking at Goose itself, you can see it's kind of a chat-based interface, so user can ask their question down here, add additional attachments for context as well. And I want to go into the settings, because I think this kind of highlights some of the things we touched on in the earlier slide, where you can hook up any model. So again, Goose isn't actually a large language model. It's just a host to run all these different types of models, which enables a lot of flexibility if you're working with a task where you know one model really excels, say like GPT 4.0 for creative work or Claude 3.5 Sonnet for coding. You can kind of switch back and forth based on the task you're doing. And then we have extensions, which are basically synonymous with an MCP. It's the MCP that allows the extension to work. And so you can see here we have, we'll be using Google Drive in this demo, developer tools, which interacts with my computer, as well as then the Snowflake one is the main one that we'll be showcasing. But you can see almost any enterprise app or tool that you can think of, you could connect and automate here. And so there's a lot more on our public GitHub repo that others outside of Block have started to contribute to as well to enable that. And so, yeah, I think that's probably good for this.
And just to give you guys an idea of the scale, I think at one point, during some hack weeks and other sessions, Block was churning out dozens of these MCP servers for different applications for different purposes, right? Even 2 Snowflake MCPs can have slightly different purposes. So the speed at which you can build them and then using them build more is incredible.
Yeah, this is true. It was a frenetic but exciting hack week. Okay, so I just copied this prompt in so you don't have to watch me type, but we're going to ask Goose, analyze Cash App payment notes to uncover emerging cultural and economic trends in 2024 compared to 2023. Be hypothesis-driven in your approach and share insights that tell a story about how people are using Cash App. So this is kind of continuing that storyline of, again, this took our public relations team weeks upon weeks to find these trends. We're just going to give Goose a very open-ended question and see what it comes up with. So it's going to OAuth through Snowflake, which is great. That'll ensure that the user actually has access to this table so that we don't accidentally expose confidential data to our users. And you can see here what it's doing behind the scenes is it's fetching the context. So you'll notice that I didn't have to say, go to this table. This is really highlighting the benefit of a semantic layer, which a lot of you, if you were at the product session this morning, semantic layer is huge with AI because it's able to kind of direct those business questions automatically. And so it's fetching context from our Snowflake table, and we'll talk about this a bit more later on as well, but you can see that we have all of this metadata embedded, or basically our data documentation embedded in our table in Snowflake, and that's what's enabling it to know how to interact with this data. So join patterns, what the column definitions are, what everything means. And so you can see that here's what it does. It first comes up with hypothesis 1. It says, I think there's going to be changes because of inflation. So the LLM knows that inflation was a thing that happened from 2023 to 24. Let's look at the data. And it wrote the SQL. So this isn't something that we had to pre-train it on. It just automatically was able to start looking into all of these ideas. And the SQL looks pretty good. It's looking at both years, does a year-over-year comparison, has a second hypothesis. Let's look at entertainment trends. And yeah, we'll let it keep thinking there for a second. Hypothesis 3, emerging keywords and trends. Oh, so this is AI. I don't know if too many Cash Appers are paying each other for AI, but we'll see what the data says. And this is actually a good example then of how we can use Streamlit in collaboration with Goose, because we might see some interesting results around this. Or sorry, yeah, Streamlit. We might see some interesting results, and this might then facilitate us to say, let's go back to our source of truth Streamlit dashboard, Search AI, where we have these pre-built charts, and we can see exactly how many mentions there were. And so you kind of have that like second step of validation. So, okay, you can see it has pretty robust analysis here. I won't read through it all, but it kind of summarizes some economic behavior shifts, so change in gig economy, side hustle, as well as some like change in entertainment. It says high but declining prevalence of AI-related payments. So maybe that is changing with initial hype, maybe stabilizing. I don't even know what people are paying for AI on Cash App, but we can do that as a follow-up case study and maybe share it in our next That's Money trend report. So yeah, summarizes an overall narrative. And then I love this feature as well. suggested next steps for analysis. So let's say that I wanted to dig in and look at, this is a good idea. Let's look at it by different US regions, right? So we might want to just try that. I missed a name, it should be okay. It's saying, do you want to dig in by geographic area? Do you want to look at seasonal patterns, correlate different amounts, demographics? So really showcasing how we're starting to make data human here by letting it kind of look at the data as it's querying it, it's understanding it better. Just with these two examples, I think this is already some decent analysis, but you can imagine as you continue to ask questions and refine it, be even more hypothesis-driven as an analyst based on what you know about your company's data, it really can produce some pretty amazing results at scale. We're actually going to, I want to showcase the integration with Google Drive or just other apps. So let's say that we have this analysis and we want to say, let's actually say, thanks Goose, that was a live demo and you crushed it. Honk, honk. I like to honk, honk Goose sometimes because it gives fun results back. But we'll show our gratitude and then I'll type, let's see, this is, okay, yeah, so you can see, there we go. It's just telling us what it did and giving recommendations for other things. Okay, and then let's say that we want to do, we want to share it with our stakeholders. So summarize all these findings in a document and create the Google Doc. You can imagine you could give it a lot more context too to say like what exactly you wanted to summarize. Or another example is you could say synthesize the findings here, send a Slack message to my team, tell them to do X, Y, Z. Or maybe you discover a bug in the data and you say open a Jira ticket, submit it to this team. And so any of those applications that you saw in our extensions, you could create an integration and automate that process. So we'll give it just a second here. And while this is running, well, actually, I'll wait for this to finish, and then I'll.
One thing I'll mention as well, right, and Zach kind of touched on it earlier, is that despite the speed at which Block has been moving, like adopting these tools, there is still a very, very healthy amount of skepticism and I think, caution around how these results are used, right? You're not unleashing the C-suite to immediately start using this and using the information in their reporting calls. They're extremely, extremely responsible with how they use this, going kind of between the more traditional BI of Streamlit and between the generative AI. So for any of you that are kind of looking at your Gen AI journey, I would try to emulate that as well, because although we are making huge strides in that space, it is not yet ready to just, put in front of people and kind of influence decisions without that human input.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like everything here, we cannot take at face value. I would say, I think yesterday or today, Sridhar, CEO of Snowflake, at one point said they're seeing like 90% accuracy with a lot of this data, and that's anecdotally about what we've seen with ours too. So most of the times it is very accurate in the results, but really needs to be fact-checked before making business decisions. But I think still definitely useful in kind of starting the thought process, right? So you can see here, it created this document for us, wrote an executive summary, summarized some of the key findings and the overall narrative, as well as included methodology. So this is really kind of just showing how it's able to automate that next step of analytics and socializing the results. Okay, I think, oh, sorry. I was going to just quickly show, Matt mentioned it, but Block has built a ton of MCPs, and so this is what our MCP repo looks like. A lot of like enterprise tools, but also a lot of ones that we've just created. And really, I won't dig into the code too much because we have other stuff to get to, but it may seem very complicated, but the process of developing an MCP is really just these simple tool calls, right? So it's like this tool call to fetch context for the Snowflake MCP, a tool called execute query, and our internal data analytics platform team that built this MCP they put a lot of important guardrails in to make sure that the data is being used responsibly, to make the users have access, that we're not allowing any write functionality, it's read-only. So would highlight that it's both easy to set up, but also important to think through the guardrails you want to enable. And I think with that, let's go back to, okay, our slides. Perfect. Yeah, you want to talk about this one?
Sure, yeah. I think in general, what Zach's been showing is one of the things I love about this job is you have customers that are pushing things so quickly, right? This came out in November, MCP came out in November, Goose came out in January, and the adoption has been incredible. And it's really cool to see that and work with, the entire team that, pushes the technical boundaries of what's possible and become kind of leaders in the space. And so Snowflake, we've been keeping up, and in the past couple of weeks, we've been developing our own kind of addition to the open source project, allowing Cortex to be a LLM provider within the platform. So that'll be in next week's release, and that'll support multiple Anthropic models with many more to come. And we've also been working on our own MCP server, which is live now on the Snowflake GitHub page, Snowflake Labs, I believe. And that will support Cortex Search and Cortex Analyst. And, I think with a lot of the announcements you guys probably heard today in the product showcase, there is only more to come, right? There's a lot of this that plays well with Snowflake and leverages some of the work that's already been done by Block. So we're really excited to see where this goes in the next few months. Someone on our product team put it really well that, this is not a conversation and not a journey that's evolving over weeks and months. It's happening over hours and days. Things are changing. So it's extremely exciting. Definitely check out Goose, check out the new Snowflake integration, as well as the many MCP servers out there.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we are very excited about Snowflake Intelligence and all these new product releases. Okay, so we've talked up to this point about how we've built some Streamlit apps. We've enabled Goose to speak to the data. And that gets us up to the current moment at Block where we're trying to figure out how do we scale these responsibly and integrate them to create this new generation of analytics tools for our stakeholders. And so we wanted to talk about a bit of the data architecture where we are prioritizing data mesh and semantic layer. So data mesh, if you're not familiar, is where data is governed as a product. We have these different product domains that create their own metrics. They own their data. That feeds into our semantic layer. And as you can see, and the semantic layer then feeds into these user access points like dashboards, Goose. And so in the ideal world, all of our user access points are, of course, built on this same governed infrastructure. And semantic layer, as you heard a lot this morning and it's been talked about a lot, is, I think, very critical to this solution because anyone who's worked with AI knows that the output you get is only as good as the context you provide, right? And so in my opinion, the best way to provide that context in enterprise data settings is through the semantic layer. So it's kind of this abstraction layer that sits between your data warehouse and your user endpoints to provide the AI or your tool's context. And so to that, this is kind of how we've been thinking about building out the semantic layer for our kind of like in the last 3 months of just like ramping up really quickly on we need to get context to our Snowflake MCP. And so when we first hooked up the Snowflake MCP to Snowflake, it was a straight line from Goose to Snowflake MCP to the Snowflake client. But with a semantic layer, we have this divergent path where before it calls the Snowflake client, it calls the semantic layer, which basically builds the SQL in a structured, governed way. And so you saw that in our demo, if you don't have this layer integrated for a certain data source, it will just, the LLM will kind of create its own SQL, which might be good, it might be terrible, but it's definitely not deterministic, right? It'll give a different answer every time, most likely. And so this is a way to get a bit closer to those deterministic outputs where you pre-govern the data, or sorry, the structure. And yeah, like I said, we kind of started building this a couple months ago, but we're really excited to use the semantic models that were announced this morning. So to summarize some of the key learnings, Model-based semantic layer, I just talked about that one quite a bit, but also, we found AI works really well with your normalized tables of fact and dimensions. And so we're kind of trying to structure our data as much as we can that way, rather than these really wide denormalized tables that analysts love because it's a one-stop shop. You don't have to do joins. But it's much easier for AI to kind of cube the data together and decompose it when it's structured in a normalized star schema data modeling.
Zach, if I can add as well,
Yeah.
the part about whether it's machine learning, whether it's AI, that people don't want to talk about because they want to talk about the exciting, generative actually using it part, is data engineering. You cannot do any of those workloads without having a strong data foundation, without having clean data. That is, I see a lot of people nodding. That is the truth that people don't always understand. And so Block's done a great job cleaning that up, enabling this to actually happen. And so whether you're starting your AI journey or you're already on it, more than 50% of it is going to be that, data engineering and data cleanliness.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so one other one is documentation as code. We also highlighted this in the demo, but as much as possible, we're trying to move away from scattered Wiki and Notion pages and just embedding all of our documentation directly in the metadata of Snowflake tables, because that's what enables the LLM to get context at the same time it's querying the table, so you don't have to manage all of these separate references. And then governance guardrails. So this one's a bit more meta, but if you think about AI, in a lot of ways, it's not that different from human behavior, right? Humans can be unpredictable at times. We can say things that we think are true that turn out not to be true. And so how have companies learned to rely on non-deterministic humans? It's through redundancy, right? It's through governance. We have people checking each other's code. We have teams working together on projects. And so that's kind of a broader area we're thinking about with our AI adoption is how do we build in these same redundancy checks for our processes, where it's either, in some cases, maybe even another agent reviewing the output of our first agent, or a human. And so I think, if AI can automate 95% of the analytics process and require a human to be in the loop who deeply understands the data, who can spot inaccuracies, to me, that's not a limitation, that's a feature. And that's a really valuable part of the puzzle, I think, of how we move forward with AI. Okay, so last slide. We wanted to end with this because I think it's the thesis kind of our message today. We're in this interesting, exciting, but also challenging transition phase where we're bridging two worlds together, right? We have our traditional world of static BI reporting, governed results where you know what you're getting with these dashboards, and this new world with probabilistic generative AI, where it can be hugely beneficial and insightful, but also carries some risks if you don't understand the data. And so just to highlight, or to illustrate an example, a recent example is just a few weeks ago, I was working on building out an AI agent for our CFO to pull financial documents from various sources and to create kind of trend analysis reports on top of it. And the agent was pretty impressive. It was accurate about 90% of the time. But how is a CFO or any financial analyst supposed to rely on a tool that has a 10% chance of being wrong? And so that's where our traditional BI dashboarding, and in our cases, Streamlit, becomes crucial because our financial team can get all this insight from how this stuff works, and then go to our Streamlit dashboard to corroborate and validate the data. So this is all super early. Our roadmap could change again in 3 months, but this is kind of our strategy right now. And as we continue to kind of race towards the possibilities here, we're going to continue bridging stability with innovation. So thank you all for your time.